plastering a wall in the fall, guys. So rendering a wall here in winter time, and obviously we know what that means. Cold weather, wet conditions, slower drying times, and most times a right pain. So I'm going to give you some tips and one that I regularly use. Also sometimes use this stuff on deep holes and stuff to fill out as well. So basically it's an accelerator and frost proofer, and that should make my render, my sand and cement render, pick up and set and harden faster. So I'm doing good now, I've got some nice sun. So let's crack on, get this video done. Right guys, so here we go, getting the scratch coat on, and I'm going to start top left and just take each section from left to right as I go. Now it's December here when I'm coating this. It's pretty cold, although it's a nice bright day, perfect conditions for rendering outside, plastering outside, absolute perfect conditions for your sand and cement work outside. The only thing is now, what you have to be careful of is you don't over wet the wall. I have given this a wee splash. Now you know this wall's not, it's not even over 6 months old, I wouldn't think. So it's not going to have a big lot of suction in it. And it had been raining most of this month as well. And as well as being cold. So you want to sometimes, if you're going to be working outside, you might want to reduce how much you wet stuff, guys, and almost allow the suction to help the render dry in, and that will also protect it against frost, of course. The reason I've given it a wee splash is it's my scratch coat. I do want it to bond well, and I want it to take up and be nice and strong, but I haven't soaked the wall down again because I don't want no frost hitting it, so I want it to actually dry out before the end of the day. Hence why I've got some frost proofer in my mix. I still have a wee bit of mortar mix in and some waterproofer. Again, if you're thinking about rubbing this wall up, you might want to drop the waterproofer out, guys. You might want to not put any in and just put it in your top coat. I always do still put it in my first coat. It's just the way I work. I know allowing your scratch coat to actually dry the top coat in the winter is not a bad idea by any means. So anybody cutting that out, I wouldn't have anything against them. By cutting out the waterproofer, you could really be saving yourself a lot of time, especially on the bottoms, guys. As you gotta think about these walls, where the moisture is going to go is naturally down the way. It's going to soak into the block and stuff quite a bit as well. But the lower you go on the wall, the more chance of the moisture dropping in the wall. So even on this wall, the last two blocks here, I would assume don't ever wet them in the winter. Just assume they're going to be quite wet. And also, if you're coating the top like me, imagine the moisture being sucked into the block and dropping down the back of the render as you're putting it on. It'll fall down towards the bottom as well, as moisture does want to fall, guys. So keep things like that in mind. So I will be dropping more tips throughout this whole video. Quite a long video to get through, but basically this will help you in your sketch coat is your base coat for your top coat. So things that I'm saying now will really help in helping you adjust your methods, give you some ideas, food for thought. As I know a lot of other plasters, we've all been there, sort of feeling cold and wet, sitting in the van, freezing, waiting for your render to pick up. It just seems like a never ending task, where you maybe get the top rubbed and then halfway down it starts to struggle, and then the bottom's almost an absolute disaster, where you're sitting trying to put lights out or whatever you can. I know I've seen me there to actually 8 o'clock at night trying to rub some renders in and get it a nice shape. So I know a lot of you get other spreads and renderers out there have been in the exact same boat, and basically advice I'm giving now, hopefully I can help some of the new guys coming in, give them some fresh ideas and some things to look out for and to think about before even taking a rendering job on in the winter. So when we're talking about working in the winter, and I do recommend you do try to render in about 5 degrees and rising, but like I said, frostproofer will help reduce drying times and get the moisture out of the render that bit quicker and set it up, which, you know, it's definitely an option. It's definitely food for thought. And, you know, but extreme temperatures, you know, there's freezing cold, and then there's, you know, on the other side of the map there, it's going to be roasting hot. And like, I'm sure a lot of you guys see people working out in heat, Spain, India, Pakistan, where it's warm and they're still out rendering, and you can see the stuff is drying in Africa and stuff. There's lots of videos there, guys, and they're still getting it on, and it looks a cracking job when they're done. And I have no doubt in my mind them guys are absolute seasoned professionals, so they know what they're doing. So a bit like here, it's you know, where I'm from, like, it's always cold. Well, not always cold. We do get nice summers, but not great summers. But we do get some good weather as well. So to me, it's always about trying to pick the mix, your plan of attack, get everything right first before you even start. Again, if it's absolutely pelting down outside, or it's the roads are absolutely iced over, maybe there's just no point on that job. Maybe if you have an inside job, you're better going tackling that. But again, if it's going to be cold in the morning and you know it's going to heat up during the day, there is things you can do and preparation you can take, like your mix. For instance, this mix here is 3-to-1 frostproofers, taste of waterproofer, and a wee tiny bit of mortar mix. Again, mortar mix will slow down your mix, but I like it in just for the workability, not too much. And what I do is, when I'm rendering in cold, I do try to let the mixer really mix it up. Scratch coat can be mixed quite wet, but if you allow the mixer to mix the product, you'll find you don't have to add as much water either. So less water, quicker drying times, guys. So what you see here in the background there, guys, is the cement mixer going. And something I like to do is, before I run out, is, as you know from previous videos, if I think I'm going to need another mix, I always have it ready. But obviously that first barrel, and then I had another half barrel left, was never going to do the whole wall. So basically what I like to do is get a mixing when I'm just wasting up the last drop of the previous mix, and that way I have a nice cycle of sand and cement, and I won't run down, and things will keep on moving forward nicely. So something to think about, guys, if you're doing anything large, just to have your supply always ready. So a wee story, guys, about the frost and plastering outside, rendering outside. There was one time, it was quite some time ago, when we were doing K-Rend. I can't remember if it was K-Rend or Weber Manicus render. And as you know, you apply it all one day, and you come back the next day and you finish it off, you scratch it off. That's the way you hand apply it naturally. I know some people try to finish it the same day. I wouldn't really recommend that. Maybe in real high temperatures and it's going off nicely. But I have always coated it quite thick and took precautions to try to slow it down, actually, more than speed it up, so that it will rub the next day. And this one occasion we were working quite far away from home. I think maybe it was an hour and a half drive. Some people probably laughed at it, some guys probably do that regular, but normally work within 30-40 minutes radius of my own house. So back to the story. Freezing cold. get it all coated on during the day. Next day, similar day, what we're doing here. And we land, so say that was a Thursday, we land on a Friday. We'll have a big gable on, a back of a house on, and like a gable of a wee small sunroom part of the house, all on, with a nice sort of off yellow K-rand or Weber Manicouche render. So as you can imagine, quite a lot of gear, maybe a pallet and a half, maybe more, quite a lot of stuff. Stuff's quite expensive, as some of you guys know who's purchased it or who's got it on a job. And we land, so go over to the corner of the wall, just test it, not up on the scaff or anything, just give it a wee test. And I remember rubbing it with a brand new float. I think it was probably a Refina type, as it had a blue handle, and I was rubbing away at it, trying to rip it off, and I was going, this stuff's set, it's solid. And no jokes, literally looked at the wall and was like, what's all these grey markings? The K-rand, the render itself was absolute froze solid. Any moisture in it had completely froze over. There was almost like a wee lick of ice over the whole thing. And my brand new float was now not brand new, because it had actually been that hard that it had actually wore off the sharp tips of the blade off the bat. So absolute nightmare. I remember the boss panicking, as you just can imagine, quite a lot of product here, and if this was satin cement, the likelihood of this blowing off altogether would be probably quite high. So the water wouldn't work. The pipes were froze completely solid, even though they were buried in the ground. It took some amount of fires to sort of heat up the pipe that does come up out of the ground, even though it's plastic as well. So couldn't light the fire just too close to that, otherwise obviously it would melt. And I remember the time the boss phoned his brother, who was brilliant, absolute brilliant guy, at the K-rand, and they were on a big site working, doing some Manicouche render, and he basically said same thing, our stuff's froze solid, won't rub off, and we're gonna sit here and wait till it thaws out basically. But the boss, we're on a big country house, so not really supposed to be doing this especially anymore, but basically lit some fires on each corner of the big gable wall, as that was where the most product was on, and it was first on as well. And I thought, this can't work. The heat of this, will it crack? Will the smoke stain it? But luckily the smoke was actually going the other way. It wasn't a very windy day, so smoke was going up and it was going to the other side of the actual build. And believe it or not, within half an hour the whole wall was completely rubbable, and it was finishing like a dream, absolute dream. And I remember asking that guy later on, do you remember such and such a job? I think we were caught up somewhere, can't remember where we were, maybe even working for him again. And he had said that he had been down doing a garden wall for the same house, for the same fella, and the wall, not a crack on it, not a stain. He says it looked as good as the day that we had left it finished. So I was quite proud of the product. Whether it was, I think it might have been Weber, I know I keep saying K-rand, it might have been Weber, but I'm not 100% sure. But for to hear that feedback is pretty impressive. The fact that it was froze solid, we did warm it up, get it scrubbed off and finished, and he was back for a few years later doing another job and was able to say it looked, he had a wee walk around and said it looked absolutely as good as the day we had first left it. So just goes to show you guys, where there's a will, there's a way, and with a wee bit of luck, you can save the day too. So back to this video, and hopefully we can pick up some things here and we can get some more tips out to you here, and we won't have to rely too much on luck, and hopefully preparation and a good plan of attack during the winter months here. January, February could be very cold here as well, so you're always risking any of the sort of even September's normally good, but September all the way back to sort of March can be pretty cold conditions. So this video can serve a good purpose, and let's see if we can come up with good plans of attack to keep us working outside during the winter. Not that it's going to be too fun to do, but sometimes you gotta get that job finished. So one of the things I would do, guys, with my top coat to try also to help it dry out. So we've already established if you drop waterproofer out of your scratch coat, that it might help have more suction for when you come to do your top coat. If you're going to wet it, certainly do not wet along that bottom. You might live to regret that for the next 7 hours where it's just not set. You might have to come back the next morning and try and rub it in and finish it, which that can be a good tactic as well. But most people will want to have it all rubbed and finished same day, so it all nice and neat, same colour, sets the same. And again, no risk of frosting if you somewhat get the surface sealed. So next thing then is the mix. Again, some people put a wee scoop of lime in, drop the waterproofer, and the lime should help set up your render that bit quicker also. And my scratch coat here is a 3-to-1, and then I typically do 4-to-1 on top of that. Again, the cement might help set it up quicker also and dry it up. So things to think about there. Frostproofer. Another thing you could do is, like I said, leaving it open. Don't flatten it in. Don't rub it too early. Is leaving it open with the likes of the Refine serrated feather edge. Sort of just leave it open as long as possible, especially at the bottom. And what you might have seen me, use that in previous videos, and you also might have seen me using my devil float as trying to dry the render out at the same time as flattening it in, but leaving it open in areas as well to sort of let the moisture out and evaporate. And it did feel like it was working well on that also, so another wee tactic to possibly think about, guys. So we've come up with quite a good lot of tactics and scenarios basically, and again, a lot of these things can be done nearly in reverse when you're working in the summer with lots of heat, to try and slow down the setting, where in the winter you're trying to speed it up. It could be cold, but if it's windy, the wind does help dry up the render as well, guys, so that's another thing to think about. Following the wind. I know an old spread there was telling us he worked outside for 13 years in this country, and he just followed the wind. So, if the wind and rain was coming at the front of the house, he would go round the back and work. It's sensible enough, and it's not logic. If the sun's setting at the front, you maybe start there and do that wall. So it does make sense. Follow the wind, follow the weather, you can get away well with that. Another thing to think about is, I have said this in previous videos as well, is if you've got a new build and there's downspouts, like temporary ones and stuff, try and divert the water away from the building. And if there is no downspouts on the gutters, definitely for sure get something up there and divert the water away. I've seen me using boards and planks and bits of timber up just to lead the water away from the corners of the building. The last thing you want is a big soaking corner. I know I did coinstones before on a corner that had, this building had no gutters on it, and it was just muck, which I find hilarious, because as soon as we had finished, I was back doing a wee snagging job in the place, and there was all stones down and the gutter was all on, which was a bit funny that the builder had been asked when's the gutter going on. But obviously the plastering was priority on the job, but it was me wanting the gutter on as it was going to help my situation, as it was winter time, so I didn't want the bottoms of the walls getting dripped by water just running off the roof. But of course it didn't happen that way, so we got through that job, but it could have been easier. sometimes it is, you know, if builders listen to the plasters, they'll get away with a lot less mistakes and help the plaster out, basically. I know for a fact when we're doing jobs, we're always thinking about the guy that's coming behind us and trying to help them out, you know, whether it be cleaning out sockets, door frames, cleaning up as much as possible, helping the painter, the joiner, the plumber, the electrician, the floor man, whatever it is coming in behind. We're always trying to leave as best and tidy as a job as possible. And I do think plastering it's up there with one of the hardest trades, guys. I'm sure most of the viewers here do stick with me on that one. I know there's still a lot of hard trades out there too, but I think plastering is right up there with one of the toughest. So, like I said at the start, guys, my mix here is 3-1, and I plan to go 4-1 on the top of this. Well, actually, there's going to be areas that are going to be 3.5-1, and that's for some detailed work, which I will be uploading probably next week after this video. So, hopefully, you get some time to log on and watch that also. I think it'll be pretty interesting video. It was good fun and interesting to do it, so hopefully it's worth the watch, guys. And yes, I'm working left to right with my right hand. I'm not a left-handed plasterer, although I probably could have done this wall with my left hand. Be a bit slower, but sure, I could have got there. Using the Refina trowel here with the Pointsman hook and a Refina or a Rambo Tools scarifier / scratcher, and again I scratch it just in straight lines, try to keep it as tidy as possible, and try to keep a real good key on it as well. And basically you'll want that in the winter as well, so it grips your render pretty good. You don't want no wet slidey render sagging down on you. That's going to be the last thing you want. And I always try to keep my scratch coat neat and tidy, as it really will pay off dividends for your top coat. If you have big lumps, you're going to have to scrape them back, or if you miss them when you coat and you're trying to straighten, you'll find wee dry patches or just bits that are sticking out too far, and you're going to have to start chipping them, and it'll not be a nice scenario for you whatsoever. So you can see the wee splash marks there on certain parts of the wall. Again, didn't soak the life out of it, but I was wanting to give it a good bond to the wall. And again, you can see my mix is quite nice to work with. It's not too stiff, and it's very workable satin cement that I've made myself. And don't want to be getting murdered, and that's why I'm using it out of the barrel. Just a couple of mixes that do have the mixer set up on top, and so that's easy just to pour out, clean out and stuff as well. Also, guys, if you want to know how to set the mixer up, I have a video on how I set a mixer up on my own, just a wee belly mixer now. Obviously, don't be trying to pull them big heavy site mixers about when you're on your own. But coming to the end of this wall now, and hopefully if you have any questions, you are firing them down away there. I'd love to hear from you, and if I can help, I always do try my best to help you out, give you my opinion, what I would do, what I wouldn't do on whatever scenario you are working on. Food for thought sometimes, you know, sometimes more minds the merrier, and sometimes it's a bad thing too. There's too many cooks spoil the broth. But I think in plastering, you never have enough artillery to use, and that's why I give you certain mixes there with adding lime. Take the motor mix out, add lime, and what that'll do is, you know, it'll give you a nice creamy fluffy mix, and it should tighten it up. Just you'll find that at the later stages that it'll just pick up quicker. The only time personally I ever used lime would be for dry dash, and even then not too often, but it can really really make a nice mix, nice and fluffy. But again, not essential. And you might not want your dry dash picking up, although you will find that it catches the stones very nice when it's a nice fluffy mix with that in. Again, no swirly lines, guys, and I hopefully will be doing videos on that and why I keep the straight lines. There's nothing wrong with straight lines other than all wavy ones. I think sometimes people just like the wavy ones because they look different, a bit like my hawk looks different, but I like it because it's actually feels good to hold and use. And I think this wall itself actually only took 2.5 mixes in total, so not a great deal of sand and cement on it, considering the detail work I do later on takes, you know, almost as much as it took just to scratch coat this wall. Now, I don't go too thick on the scratch coat, guys. It's probably about 6-7 mil thick at best. So as you all know, the top coat shouldn't be stronger, it should be weaker. I know some people have claimed that they do 3-to-1, 3-to-1 or 4-to-1, 4-to-1, but I like to go 3-to-1, 4-to-1. It's always stuck by me personally, and like I said there, my first coat's probably between 5 and 6 mil, maybe a bit more, a bit less, give or take, and never really have any issues with the blocks shining through my work, even when it be raining and damp. That is the times when you will see the odd mortar joint possibly shining through on work and stuff, but I've never found that happening too often on any of my jobs. So I think again, what's working for me, I'm gonna constantly keep doing the same thing. If I ever need to adapt, I will adapt, but like I say, guys, if something is working for you, keep that as your baseline. And again, you know, if you need to adapt, you can always tweak it, add something, take something away, do something different, you know, use a different tool, whatever it takes to get the job better in the future. Just need that wee tweak. So coming to the end here, and I will show you how I do this quarter, how I rule it up, and the way I go about it here. And I think some subscribers were asking me what way do I set rules in that, and most times it's very similar to my beads. I check for margins, I have a rough idea when I put my level across and straight edge, gauge it out and that, but I'll show you it with a bit more detail here. Now obviously I am on my own here, otherwise I'd got somebody to hold the rule up for me there, plumbed it up and just straightened it up off the rule and scratched it. But because I'm on my own, I'll just butter up the face here first, and that I've kind of put it on a wee bit fat, a wee bit heavy, so that I can work it back off my rule here. So just using the Spear Jackson level, which also has a bubble on the front edge where you can see. So a right-handed, left-handed plaster, but simple as that, guys. Really, you just want your level mark and work off it. Fill it out as best you can, especially if you're doing any detail on the corners, coin stones or bands. The corners should always be priority to keep looking real well, so you're going to want to have them as square and straight and plumb as possible. I know somebody asked me one time that basically was the wall straight, and for some reason was comparing me to Michelangelo, which I think they were trying to insult me, but I think Michelangelo was one of the greatest artists out there, so I take it as a compliment. But yeah, I'm not sure I'll ever render a wall as good as he can paint one, but I'll definitely keep trying. God loves a trier anyway. So I do the top first with my rule, scratch it, and then again same rules apply at the bottom. Just build it out, putting a wee bit extra on if possible, guys. I probably could freehand this corner and get it pretty close, as the guy built the wall did a smashing job on this corner. He kept it nice and plumb. One of the better bricklayers, you know. But standing in your way here. But again, be much easier with a mate helping here. But I'm on my own, and it's really as easy as keeping it plumb, guys. Obviously, don't put it out way too far. You'll have to coat the whole wall again. Keep it sort of in the same margin, that 5-6 mil of a coat that you're putting on, and scrape it up. Make sure you work the trowel up and down off the rule, and if you clean the edge as best as possible when you're working there, it's good. Here's another wee tip if you're using timbers. If you give them a bit of a wet, guys, they might stick a wee bit, but they should slide off. If they're dry, you'll find that they can rip and tear the corners a lot more. And usually I would have somebody holding one on one edge, somebody else on the other edge, and you can get it really square that road. And I haven't cleaned my level just yet, so I can always use the other side of it. It's still clean to plumb this end up. So I haven't bothered coating this end the way I did with the front end, as I don't want to damage the corner, if that makes sense. If I try to freehand coat it, which I could do and get it pretty neat, but if the risk you'll take is the edge that you just plumbed up, you could pull it off, and we're trying to avoid that. So that's why I use the edge, and that'll hold its shape and keep it in the shape that you left it there. So I'm just going to work it basically right over to the other edge, but I am going to throw a bit of an edge up the back end and tidy it up too, just to keep it looking sharp. I know it's the back of the wall, but maybe pull down them fences some stage and maybe render the back of that with a power float, and give that power float another video. Maybe do a power float sort of time lapse and see how good it really is. But there you are, guys. Make sure you always scratch it, and if your render does smooth off, don't forget to give them edges another wee key. And like I said, if you're doing coin stones or bands, that extra wee scratch I did on the smooth bits will help you out leaps and bounds, and you can thank me for that later. Again, wash your rules and your straight edges, guys, if you're going to use them again. It's much better than scraping them. And again, if they're dirty, they won't give you a true edge, where if they're clean, they'll go true. Again, sometimes if your rule's big enough, you should be able to line it off your original coat, but it is good to double check it, which I'm doing here. But just like I thought, it's still plumb because I plumbed up the top. So getting a wee bit awkward here because I'm down low and the wheel bar is a bit higher now. But you can do what I'm doing, guys, and just slap a bit on, build it out, get it scraped off nice and straight, and you'll have a nice square edge shortly. Trying to clean the bottom off as I go here. But yeah, this is typical. You can use a bead here as well. Another follower was asking me that when I'm planting beads, do I scratch the wall first then stick them on? And it's a hard one to answer, because depending on what you're doing, like the likes of manicure renders, sometimes it might be handy just to tack the bead on and put a wee lick on after, so that depending on the thickness of the beads, some of them plastic beads are very, very heavy, so depending on what thickness you need to go will determine whether you try to bed it in underneath the scratch basically, or you bed it on top of the scratch, which will allow you an extra coat again. and hopefully I'm explaining that correctly. But if you imagine the 6mm, if we're bedding a bead on top of this, then you're already throwing it out 6 more mil. Or if you're bedding it underneath this with nails and then scratching over the top, you're going to be losing the thickness of your scratch coat already, which really can save you out a lot of time and effort when it comes to top coating. So if I was going to put beads on this wall, I would for sure scratch it the way I'm doing now, bed the bead in nice and tight, plumb it up quickly, and then just check what kind of a coat I've got. If I've got too heavy of a coat, I will either try to bed the bead in a wee bit deeper, or I'll fill out up the bead maybe 2-3 trowel lengths out the way, so that when I come to do my top coat, I'm not facing a sort of half a barrel up one bead, you know. So, but I think that would be the strongest way, is bedding it in, like pressing my bead onto that now and putting a wee lick up around it as well, so you know you got stuff above and below. Here's another tool you can use with your techniques, guys, the Ragnai exterior angle trowel. Now unfortunately I can't use this trowel for my interiors anymore because I accidentally closed the van door on that interior angle trowel and it wrecked the rivets, absolutely destroyed them. I have done this many a time on even heads that I'm doing a soft corner on a concrete head, and this has shaped it up nicely where I'm able to just let it sit, let it take up, then tidy it up with a floating rule after. And you can see most times it's better just to pull the Ragnai exterior trowel up the way, angle trowel up the way on the render. It doesn't pull off, but yeah, it will give you a nice tidy edge. Again, that's just tidying that corner up so that I can finish this corner right around. But hopefully, guys, if I've missed anything out, you can hit me up in the comments. I know people were talking about chloride flakes and stuff as well for your heavy stuff, and fondue, which somebody gave me the correct spell and I cannot find the comment again, as I had been spelling fondue wrong every time I'd been looking for it. I think they said that it was a Belgium type of cement, so it was spelt differently. But again, fondue and stuff can really pull you out of a hole also. I'm not sure how chloride flakes compare to fondue. I know fondue would get you could put a head on and rub it within 5 minutes and sponge it and walk away, it's done. That's how quick that gear sets. I haven't seen anything like it since, anything faster. I don't know what the crystals are like compared to it, but let me know your experiences with that, guys, in the comments. I'd love to hear, or if you just know another technique that I haven't even talked about yet, such as something crazy, putting finish in your cement to set it off, which I would not recommend. Will it work? Yes, absolutely. But will it fail? Most likely. There is a trace of gypsum in cement, but you know, it's like 3%. So just something to think about, but I would not recommend it, guys.